Today we're going to talk about a word that so many of us use without even thinking about it. A word that, believe it or not, has life or death consequences for millions of animals. That word is feral. What if I told you that here in North America, there might not even be such a thing as a truly feral cat? Let's get into it.
So, I want to start with the story of a cat named Baby. For 6 whole years, he was listed for adoption, and not a single person asked about him. That one sentence just hits you, right? It perfectly captures the tragic reality for so many cats that get labeled unadoptable. What was it about Baby that made him so invisible?
You see, to anyone who met Baby, he seemed completely wild. He was terrified of people. But here's the thing. He'd been in human care since he was just a 2-month-old kitten. He was pretty much the poster child for a cat that gets slapped with a label and then, just gets written off. And this is where it gets really interesting. This is the puzzle at the very heart of his story. Baby and his brother had the exact same upbringing, same litter, same foster home, handled by people from the very same age. And yet the brother turned out to be the super social, cuddly love bug, while Baby, well, he stayed terrified of people for years and years. So what gives? If everything in their environment was identical, what could possibly explain such a massive difference in personality? The answer really challenges a belief that's been held in the animal rescue world for a very, very long time. For decades, we've all heard the conventional wisdom, right? It's all about that critical socialization window. If you don't handle a kitten enough when it's young, that's it, game over. But Baby's story, it suggests that something else entirely might be going on.
And the answer that's being suggested here is genetics. The big idea is that a cat's basic temperament, whether it's naturally inclined to be friendly or cautious with humans, might actually be inherited, not just learned through experience. So the theory goes something like this. A kitten's social tendencies might actually come from its father. Now think about it. In rescue, we almost never know who the father is. This would totally explain why you can have a litter of kittens with the same friendly mom, but some are super outgoing and others are incredibly shy. A cat like Baby wasn't unsocialized. He might have just been born with a genetic blueprint that made him cautious.
And this means that the whole hard and fast rule about that 8 to 12 week socialization window might just be a huge oversimplification. Or maybe, in some cases, it's just plain wrong. If a cat is genetically programmed to be cautious, no amount of early handling is going to magically turn it into a lap cat. It doesn't mean they're a lost cause, not at all. It just means they're on their own schedule.
Okay, so how does all this genetic stuff connect back to the words we use? Well, when we call a cat feral, it triggers a whole chain of assumptions that can literally seal its fate. But what does that word actually mean?
All right, let's get technical for a second. In biology, a feral animal is one that comes from a long line of wild, undomesticated ancestors. The perfect example is a wolf. You can raise a wolf cub in your house, but you can't erase its fundamental wildness. It is not a dog. You can't truly tame it.
Now compare that to the cats we call feral. They are all Felis catus. That's just the scientific name for the common domestic cat. They aren't wild animals. They are homeless or maybe unsocialized domestic animals. Their genes are domestic, which means they absolutely have the built-in capacity to bond with people.
And here's the kicker. There are no native, wild populations of Felis catus anywhere in North America. Not a single one. Every cat you see, from the one snoozing on your sofa to the one hiding in an alley, is a descendant of domestic cats that were brought over on ships about 400 years ago. They simply are not wild animals.
And this is exactly why the words we choose matter so much. Calling a cat feral implies it's wild, it's untamable, and that makes leaving them outside seem like the most natural, maybe even the kindest thing to do. But if we use a word that's actually accurate, like stray, it completely reframes the situation. It tells us this is a domestic animal that doesn't have a home. And the solution for that? Find it a home.
So this whole misunderstanding has had a massive real-world impact. In fact, it's directly shaped the main system that we've built to manage homeless cat populations, Trap-Neuter-Return, or TNR.
And you can see this real tension in the system right here on this slide. Look, as a way to control the overall population, TNR makes a lot of sense. It's a much more humane alternative than mass euthanasia, and it definitely helps reduce the number of homeless kittens being born. But if you look at it from the perspective of the one cat being trapped, it can be a completely terrifying experience that ends with it being dumped back into a dangerous, difficult life on the streets.
And the consequences of that outdoor life are, well, they're stark. Just look at this gap. The average lifespan for a cat living entirely outdoors is only 2 to 5 years. Now compare that to an indoor cat, which can live 12 to 18 years, sometimes longer. So TNR might stop future litters, but for the cat that goes through it, it often means a life that is brutally short and full of danger.
So, if our language is off the mark and our systems are flawed, what's the answer for cats like Baby? Well, let's get back to his story, because it did not end after 6 lonely years in a shelter.
So the author of the piece we're talking about today actually took Baby home as a long-term foster. They figured he'd just hide forever, and they were okay with that. But then, after a few months of just quiet patience, no pressure, something amazing happened. Baby decided, okay, this is my person. He started a little morning cuddle routine. He wasn't feral. He was just waiting for the right person to finally earn his trust. At the end of the day, these cats don't need to be tamed. They need to build trust, and building that trust, it takes a whole different mindset. You have to be willing to work on their timeline, which could be months, maybe even years. You have to let them be the ones to set the pace. You have to truly accept them for who they are. And you have to be ready to commit to them for life, because that bond, once they finally form it, is incredibly deep, but it's not something they can just transfer to someone else.
And this quote really just nails it. So often when an adoption of a shy cat fails, it is not because the cat is broken or unfixable, it's because there was a mismatch. The person expected an instant best friend, and what the cat needed was a patient, quiet guardian. The failure isn't in the animal, it's in our expectations. So maybe the next time you see a shy cat hiding in the back of a cage at a shelter, the question to ask isn't, is that cat friendly? Maybe the real question is, am I the person who has the patience and the commitment that this cautious little soul has been waiting for? Just shifting that question, it could change a cat's entire world.